Planner for more on that hard-fought series. Let's hear from Jack and the Team Liquid mid.
Thanks, Pacer. And yes, I'm here with Golden Glue. First off, congratulations on the victory. And I know it was a marathon, really. All 3 games, very long. How do you feel after being able to get a win at the end of this week?
Hey, it feels great. You know, we've been like self-destructing recently. You know, like we won our first set and then we went on a 4-game loss streak, so it feels really good. I just have the mindset every day that, you know, this is the day like we can turn around our season, and I think we played like that today.
Yeah, and you do mention the struggles you guys have been having after the first win. There were very high expectations for this Team Liquid team coming into the split. How have you kind of dealt with the adversity of losing essentially 4 sets in a row before this match?
Yeah, it was just really tough. I mean, everyone was really stressed, and it kind of built up to, I think, yesterday's performance where we did really bad. So last night we had a like huge team meeting where it's like 3-4 hours long, where we're just like, everyone voiced all their opinions, like what's going wrong, why are we losing, emotions, like people crying. Like it was pretty insane, pretty intense, and I think it put us in the right mentality to play good today.
Yeah, and even today, it wasn't without its adversity. You lost the first game, you struggled a little bit in the second game. How were you able to communicate as a team to pull this series through?
We just knew, like, even after the mistakes that we made game 1, we basically, the early game went as poorly as it possibly could have, and we still were being proactive in the mid game. So we just knew if we could get a solid early game, that we could pull it through mid game and late game. And I think that's kind of how the games went.
All right, and now you guys are done for this week. You've played Friday and Saturday. You have Cloud9 up next on Friday. How are you going to prepare for that, and how do you feel going into that match?
I think we addressed a lot of the issues in our practice in that meeting last night, and I think we're going to get much more efficient and goal-oriented practice this week, and I think it'll help a lot. And C9's going to be a tough opponent, so it should be fun.
All right, well, thank you very much, Golden Glue. Congratulations once again on the victory, and we're going to send it to the desk to close out the day.
Thank you very much, Jat. And yes, let's talk about this match. It came through for Liquid. I mean, game 2 was super difficult. Game 3, pretty difficult as well, required a bit of a comeback, but they made it happen, and I got to give Liquid props for, you know, finally turning things around a little bit.
They really seem to struggle in their early game pretty consistently, similar issues in game 1, but when they do fall behind, they are a team that does seem to have some kind of resilience. They showed a little bit in the TSM series, they showed it a little bit in this series as well, that they do keep fighting and trying, they keep trying to force plays, maybe not always the best ones, but they do have the desire to win. They keep trying, and eventually sometimes it pays off.
Yeah, and the desire to keep trying and make plays, I think, is kind of the theme of the bottom lane right now, because I can't tell you how many times we've seen Piglet and Matt as a duo like dive very early on in the game, doing a tower dive, trying to do a 2-on-2 dive, dying in this last game where it was just the Voidlings going after him, and actually having really plays where they are not on the same page. If they can get that synergy down and they can start, you know, playing like a lot of the other bottom lanes that we're seeing in the NA LCS, then you have a lane that is more stable. Yeah. And we're watching people have to make hero plays like Rainover, Golden Glue, and Lorlo. It's like, imagine if they didn't have to make those plays to get him back in the game.
Right, and I think you have to look at Acadian as well, the fact that he had a really strong early game once again. Okay. The Nidalee pick, maybe not quite his forte. Yeah. Who knows why they went with that option in game 2. But once back onto Graves, the champion we've seen him excel on, he showed that he can take over the early game yet again.
Yeah, he has some really smooth mechanics on that Graves. Like, Rick, you pointed out where he has a quick draw animation cancel where he shoots at the beginning.
I don't know how to do it exactly, but you can. So quick draw is an auto attack reset, but you can shoot at the beginning of quick draw. So you shoot quick draw, and then shoot while you're animating, and then you end quick draw and just AFK while you're reloading for normal, and just you can get 3 autos in like a half second.
Like that's
how he killed Rainover.
Super good at that champion, and every time the Echo Fox really want to go for Graves composition, they have point-and-click CC, which they had 3 members of their team with point-and-click CC. So he had the ability to go off that game, but TL prevented that in the mid-game by actually grouping up and winning a lot of these team fights against Echo Fox.
And I've got to give props to the top 3 members, you know, lane order-wise from Liquid. Golden Glue, I'm going to bring it up again, how was so hard on himself for his last few games, but this entire series, I thought, played well. And I'm not saying his ceiling is Faker's ceiling, but Golden Glue played well for Golden Glue. He played well for NA LCS, put out a lot of damage numbers, and was a consistent force in this series, and was a large reason why they won. Rainover looked pretty close to back on form, good numbers throughout this entire series, and Lorlo with a bunch of game-winning teleports. And I mean, we have replays of some of these team fights where Lorlo is doing so much work in these fights.
Right, and I think the big one is that 3-0 that they had around the Dragon Pit, because we talk about how we want Lorlo on carry champions to take over the game, but a carry champion usually can't do this, where he gets the perfect TP flank off, gets behind the enemy team, and just CC locks Froggen out, basically. basically.
But this is like Echo Fox going back to what their big issue was their team fighting, right? They get early leads, then they go for objectives. Their macro was a little bit off in terms of timing. But then what is Looper doing as the last person out of the pit? Why is everybody else leaving the Dragon Pit? And then Looper comes limping in as a Maokai. Is like, what is he going to do now? Because Lorlo is completely all over the other 3 members of the team while Golden Glue is flanking. It's like Looper's in a really bad position in that fight, and that's on the entire team to coordinate better for Fox.
Right, I think you can say that for a majority of the series, Lorlo actually played team fights better from the tank perspective, and it was game 2, he had a number of them. Game 3, again, there's the other one in the top lane where he got the TP flank off and cut off the escape and finished off Acadian. There's a number of team fights where Lorlo was able to play the tank, situation extremely well.
Yeah, and I thought Lolo was very good. He was like my honorable mention for player of the game, but honors do go to Reignover for this one, and I think well-deserved. Though we got behind in the early jungle matchup, he did do some really wonderful things as far as team fights. In the game winning, he solo kills Keith in the back line and plays the mechanics right. And yeah, I thought Reignover did a very good job of having really high presence in the late game and being the assassin he's supposed to be.
Right, and it can be a little difficult to play Kha'Zix from behind sometimes because your damage isn't quite there, or they're tankier than you thought they would be. But the fact that he always seems to be relevant despite if his early game is going his way or not, especially when he's not stuck on Olaf, a champion that's a little more binary. But when he's on the Kha'Zix, people have been giving it a lot to him, and he seems to perform pretty well on it.
Yeah, I actually enjoy seeing him on that champion, but none of our questions about TL and that champion pool in the jungle have been tested this week because we saw it previously where he was triple banned on blue side, and they lost both those matches last week. So nobody tested Reignover this week, so that's still a question for me moving forward.
Champ pool can always be an issue. With 5 bans, you get a lot to target people with. We'll see if that ends up coming into fruition later on in this season. But for today, we are done. The games are on the book. Let's see how the standings have shifted. Well, Cloud9, of course, they remain undefeated, alone in first place. They defeated Envy in a clean sweep. Once again, TSM, Phoenix 1, and FlyQuest, they all won, so they're all sharing second place at 4-1. And after a hard-fought win, Liquid does improve to 2-4, which nets them 7th. They've been not where they want to be, but at least a win is a win. CLG and Team Dignitas still tied at 8th with only 1 win, and Envy, of course, with an extra loss alone in last. But there are lots of ties that are bound to be broken up with the games coming up tomorrow, and it starts with a battle for second place. Phoenix 1 versus TSM on NA LCS 1. That's going to be followed by Immortals versus FlyQuest. One of these teams playing much better than expectations. Then over on NA LCS 2, Team Dignitas and CLG face off, surprisingly, both these squads with miserable records. And then Cloud9 up against Echo Fox. Going to be a fun one to watch as well. CNN hoping to continue with more and more wins. Lots of good matches. Stay tuned for all those. So for myself, my wonderful analysts, the casters, the interviews, the players, the entire live broadcast crew, thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. More NALCS action going to be there. See you tonight. Sorry. See you tomorrow. Good night. That's what I was going for. I can't read.
I'll see you tonight.